Okay, so my name is Pieter De Clerck. I'm the CEO of OpenMotics, and I'm very happy to be here. And I will give a short keynote about bridging the collective and the individual utilities. Maybe first of all, a little word about what OpenMotics is. So with OpenMotics, we've created a hard and software platform for building automation. And actually, we automate all kinds of techniques which are available in a building, ranging from outlets, lights, HVAC, solar panels, screens, etc. And we do this on a unit level, building level, and even a whole community level. Our main goal is actually to focus on creating optimal comfort at the lowest cost possible. And today, I would like to challenge you to stop investing in smart systems that actually only benefit building owners or the residents. And to do that, I will first go to say something about the grid. So the grid, the electrical grid, was always designed top down. So there were large power plants which generate electricity, and they ship their electricity through transmission networks, distribution networks to the end user. This, however, poses some issues because it was never designed that end users or dwellings actually would inject their own electricity. And so we see a global trend ongoing where we move away from the centralized power systems to a more clean and local power-based system. And this trend is actually mainly driven by the quest for energy efficiency and the reduction of the greenhouse gas emissions. But distributed energy generation can be an answer to the challenges we face, but it's not that easy. So what we see now is actually that we, in a traditional model, that we use the economies of scale. So we would try to get large installations, large power plants to get the highest cost advantage possible. So fewer products with a high margin. But we see a shift to the economies of scope. And there the focus lies actually on the lower average total costs of the production in a variety of goods. So we actually have a multitude of closed loops. And what we need to do is actually reduce energy consumption, reuse whatever we can. And if we can't reuse it, let's recycle it. And preferably, we only use renewable energy sources within these loops. So to give you a more practical example of what I'm talking about is here you can see a slide which shows a typical building in a project. And actually, there is a set of assets which consume or produce energy, and these need to be monitored and controlled by one installation. Typically, there's some sort of central heat source, maybe a battery, there are charging poles for the electrical vehicles, there's a weather station, solar panels, and all these need to be managed and need to be aligned to each other very well. But on the other hand, we have actually installations which within every unit, and these need to control assets as well. So we have the heat exchanger, which actually delivers the heat from the heat network to the unit. We have the thermostat for the comfort control, ventilation, etc. For example, for certifications such as BREEAM, certain rules need to be implemented. And by using a central weather station, the individual screens can be controlled in a cost-effective manner, but with respect to the end user actually, because he can overrule the automatic screens whenever he feels like it. So the energy optimization should never come at the cost of comfort. But now we see we have a lot of assets which are monitored and controlled with the central installation, and we have a multitude of individual installations. But these two worlds need to be bridged together. And how can we do this? This can be done by actually implementing an energy management system in the cloud. This EMS, energy management system, can have a bidirectional communication with both the central installations as all the individual installations. And this allows for interoperability. And on top of that, having such a cloud-based EMS, this brings opportunities to link in new data-driven services like weather forecasts, which is not possible on the individual level, or even fetch the Belpex prices to optimize the energy flows, or sign up to services from aggregators. But if we see that everything is changing to these collective installations, there are quite some challenges which needs to be overcome. The first one we observed quite a lot in our sales talks is actually that apparently there is a lot of discussion about the invoices. People were used to have their own gas installation in their units, and they know how much they consume, and they trust that it's correct. Once you have a central installation, they just need to believe that the invoice they get is the right one. And they don't even know that the central installation is doing its job right. So this is a first observation. Another observation we see as a challenge is actually energy waste in all-in formulas. So more and more people are renting their homes or their units with utility costs in the rent. And what we see is that for some reason, if people don't need to pay per unit they consume, is that they tend to be less efficient. The third observation is the fact that with apartments, that the roof is mostly too small to put enough solar panels for every individual unit. So what needs to be done with it? What we see is sometimes the penthouses get some of the PV panels, but not all of them. And the last one, a challenge we hear a lot is actually that there's a vast variety of techniques which need to operate together. And it's how do we make sure that the installation is running smoothly? And how do we know that once it was set up at the first design phase or delivery phase, that after a couple of years, the demands haven't changed and that maybe it's not running efficiently anymore. So there are possible solutions to these challenges. And what we believe is that smart metering is a base to this. So actually to collect all utilities centrally, but from the individual consumption. So we can measure electricity, water, heat, etc. Next to that, you can monitor the collective energy assets as well, which I showed in the previous slide. So the solar panels, charging poles, heat pumps, you name it. And when we combine all these in one data platform, this can be the source for a lot of services. At first, it already avoids the hassle to collect the meters manually, which is quite a time-consuming practice. So once we have the smart metering, this can be used to, for example, automate the invoicing. So yet again, this will spare a lot of time for the syndicates. But what's more important is that by bridging the collective and the individual world, that we can give insights to every owner to their real-time consumption. So if you send the invoice twice a year, there's far less discussion because they have a real-time overview and they see how it's doing compared to actually a previous month or previous periods. So there will be less of surprise when the invoice is actually sent. And the third part, which smart metering can be used for, is actually to sensitize people on their consumption. So we can actually compare a family, for example, two parents with two children in an apartment which is south-oriented to another south-oriented apartment with the same consistency. And then you can actually show that you're doing better or worse, of course, always keeping into account privacy. Once you have the smart metering, you can, of course, start smart controlling as well. So you could use the central PV panels to actually optimize the central heat pump or the charging poles. So you can have a higher efficiency of your energy flows. You could adjust the heating curves of every heat exchanger individually based on the forecasting services which we fetched from the cloud-based EMS. And this allows actually to have a future-proof building which can actually participate in emerging services like flexibility or peak shaving. And once all these systems are actually combined, this allows for further integrations, such as, for example, the video system, so that it becomes one unified interface where you have all your comfort needs, you have your energy insights, you see the video phone, maybe a message from a connected letter parcel boxes, a building messaging system where they announce maintenance to the elevator, etc. So what we believe, or what I'm trying to show in this keynote, is that you should always invest in a system that has the benefit for building owners and the residents. So collective systems are for sure the future, but we need to make sure that it is a benefit for both parties. So this concludes my keynote. I hope you liked it.